Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Who doesn't love granny squares? It's been a minute since I last done granny squares, so I thought I'd bring back the squares. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed them or how quickly you can bust a few out. Probably my favorite thing to work on when I'm trying to relax. What do you work on when trying to relax? Let me know in the comments. Now it's almost time to get the show on the road, but before I do me a huge favor and click like. It goes a really long way to help me put these tutorials out for free, and if you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss out. Now it's really time to get the show on the road, so without further ado. For this project, any category 3 yarn will work. I used a total of 265 grams of yarn. That's 325 yards if you're stateside, and the individual measurements will be on the screen. As for tools, a 4mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by commenting your first crochet project. For me, I don't actually remember, but I think it was a triangle top. Details down below. We're using 5 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and treble crochet. This tutorial is for size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're first going to grab our category 3 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're going to grab our 4mm hook, and we're all going to start by making a chain of 4. So here is 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that we have our chain, we're going to slip stitch into that first chain that we made. So insert your hook. We should have 2 loops on our hook, and we're going to do a slip stitch to close this off, forming a circle. So yarn over and pull through both of those loops. Pulling through 1 and 2, we now have our base, which is the circle. So to get started on our row number 1, we're all going to start by doing a chain 3. This counts as a double crochet. And we're going to chain up 1 extra. That's a chain 1. So we have a total of 4 chains. And from here, we're going to yarn over, preparing for a double crochet. And we're going to insert our hook into the center of the circle that we just made. And we're going to double crochet. So yarn over, pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and we have just formed our first chain space. Let's do another one. Start by making a chain 1 and yarn over, preparing for a double crochet. Into that same center circle, I'm going to insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. From here, we're going to continue to chain 1 and then put 1 double crochet into the center of our base until we have a total of 12 chain spaces. So I have 1, 2, 3. Let's do the next. Chain 1, double crochet. There's 4. I will meet you guys back when we have a total of 11 chain spaces. So we are back and we now have 11 chain spaces. Let's count them out together. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now our last chain space is going to come from a chain 1 right after our last double crochet, and then into that chain 3 that we made when we first started off this row. We're going to slip stitch into that third chain. So here's 1, 2, and 3. Insert your hook into that third chain, yarn over, and pull through both of those loops on your hook. And we should all now have 12 chain spaces. So from here, chain 1 and cut and grab your secondary color yarn. And now that we have the base all finished up, now we can get started on our petals or our row number 2. So start by inserting your same 4mm hook into any one of our chain spaces. It doesn't matter which one. So I'm just going to insert my hook into this one. I'm going to insert my secondary color onto my hook, pull through, and we're going to start with a chain 3 to secure and also to get height as well. There's 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to get started with our modified puff stitch. So let's get that started. We're going to yarn over and we're going to insert our hook into that same chain space that our chain 3 is in. Yarn over and pull through. We should have 3 loops on our hook. And from here, we're going to pull our work nice and tall to get the same height as our chain 3. When we can't pull up anymore, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 and should have 2 loops on our hook. We're going to do this one more time for this first modified puff stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into that same chain space, pull through, pull up nice and tall, should have 4 loops on our hook, so yarn over, pull through 2. We should now have 3 loops on our hook, so this first modified puff stitch is all done. So yarn over, pull through all 3. And then from here, we're going to chain 2 so that we can work our way over to the next chain space. Now getting started on our modified puff stitch, that is not the first one. We're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that next chain space, pull through. We're going to pull up nice and tall again, yarn over, and pull through 2. Should have 2 loops on our hook. We're going to do this again. So yarn over into that same chain space, pull through, pull nice and tall, pull through 2. We should have 3 loops on our hook, but we're going to be doing one more yarn over and pull through so that we get the same puffiness as the first one. The first one, we only did 2 of those because that chain 3 counted as one of those stitches. So yarn over into that same chain space, pull through, pull up nice and tall one more time, yarn over, and pull through 2. Should have 1, 2, 3, and 4 loops on our hook now. So yarn over, pull through all 4, and now our second modified puff stitch is all done. We're going to do a total of 3 to get one side, so let's do one more. Chain 2, and into that next chain space, yarn over, insert your hook, and pull through. Pull up nice and tall, pull through 2. We're going to do that 2 more times. Yarn over, into that same chain space, pull through. Pull nice and tall, pull through 2, and then one more time. Insert, pull through, pull up, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through all 4. Now we should have 1, 2, 3 modified puff stitches, and now we can work on our corner. So chain 2. We're now going to do 1 treble crochet into that double crochet stitch, not the next chain 1 space. So we're going to yarn over twice, and then into that double crochet stitch, insert your hook, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2, and we have just formed one side of our corner. Now let's get started on the other side. So from here, all we're going to do is chain 2, and then into that next chain space, do our first puff stitch. So yarn over, insert, pull through, pull up, pull through 2, and then do 2 more of those. There's my first. There's my second. We should have 4 loops on our hook. So yarn over, pull through all 4. Now to get to the next corner, we're going to need to do a total of 3. So here's 1. I'm going to do the next 2 really quickly. Chain 2 into that next chain space. Let's do the next modified puff stitch. Now I have 2. Let's do just one more. All right, so I now have 3 modified puff stitches. Let's do our corner again, which is going to be done the same way. So start with a chain 2, yarn over twice, and then into that double crochet stitch, not the chain 1 space, we're going to insert with our treble crochet. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, chain 2, and then put one puff stitch into the next 3 chain spaces to form our next side. So now that we have our 3 modified puff stitches for our side number 3, we're going to chain 2 and do the other corner together. So yarn over twice into that double crochet stitch, insert, pull through with a treble crochet, and then let's do our last side. So start with a chain 2 and then put one puff stitch into each of the next 3 stitches. Alright, so the last 3 modified puff stitches are all done. Let's do the last corner together. Chain 2, yarn over twice. Into that double crochet stitch, go ahead and insert with your treble crochet. Chain 2, and then to close this off, we're going to count up our 3rd chain from the chain 3 that we just made when we start off this row, and then slip stitch into there. So there's 1, 2, 3. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through everything on your hook. From here, do a chain 1 and cut. And now that we have one granny square all finished, we know how to do this. So we're going to need to learn how to do one more type of granny square, which is the same thing, just cut in half. So let's get that started. Start by making a slip knot with your same base color. Grab your 4mm hook, and we're going to start by making a chain of 4. Now that we have our chain, we're going to insert our hook into that first chain that we made, yarn over, and pull through everything on your hook, forming another circle. Now to get our row number 1 started, we're going to chain 3, that counts as a double crochet, an extra chain 1, which counts as a chain 1, so a total of 4 chains. Just like before, we're going to put 1 double crochet into the center of that circle. And there's our first chain space. Let's do 1 more. Chain 1, yarn over, then 1 double crochet into that same center circle. We're going to keep repeating our chain 1 and double crochet until we have a total of 6 chain spaces. So here's 1, 2, 3. Let's do the next 3. Chain 1, double crochet. There is 4. 5. And 6. Now just to double check, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. From here, I'm going to do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then grab my secondary color yarn. Alright, we have just finished up going in with the base of our half granny square that we have to make. From here, we're going to insert our hook into the 3rd chain from the chain 3 that we made when we started off our previous row. So let's count up 1, 2, 3. Insert your hook into there, and grabbing your secondary color yarn, insert that onto your hook, pull through. Now we're all going to start by doing a chain 3. There's 1, 2, 3. That counts as a double crochet. From here, do an extra chain. This is a chain 1 space, so we have a total of 4 chains. Into the next chain 1 space, we're going to do our first modified puff stitch, which is the same as our regular granny square, so let's do it together. Yarn over, into that next chain space, pull through. Pull nice and tall, pull through 2. Yarn over, same space, pull through, pull tall, pull through 2, and then 1 more, since our chain 3 isn't going into that same stitch. Yarn over, insert, pull through. Pull tall, pull through 2, should have 1, 2, 3, and 4 loops on our hook. So yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops. We're going to be doing 2 more for a total of 3 modified puff stitches. So chain 2, into that next one, do your next puff stitch. There's our second. Let's do 1 more. Chain 2 and then puff stitch into the next chain space. And now that we have our 3 modified puff stitches, we're going to work on our corners. So just like before, chain 2, yarn over twice. Into the double crochet stitch, not the next chain 1 space, we're going to insert our hook with our treble crochet. So pull through 2, 2, 2. From here, work on side 2, so chain 2, and then put 1 modified puff stitch into each of the chain spaces. So we are back with our side number 2 with 1, 2, 3 modified puff stitches. To close this off, we're going to chain just 1, and then into that last double crochet stitch, we're going to put 1 double crochet. And then from here, do a chain up of 1 and cut. All right, and now that we know how to do our squares, we can now figure out how many we need to make. Now they're roughly about 2.5 by 2.5 inches, and the base of the halves is about 3 inches. Mine is going to be for size small, so I happen to place mine like this. From this corner down to this corner, it reaches from my underarm down to the bottom of my top, keeping in mind that there will be a bottom band as well. From this corner up to this corner reaches up to my collarbone, and then from this corner to this corner reaches across my chest. Now, feel free to add or subtract any granny squares to get your desired size and fit. And as for the colors, I wanted to draw a diagonal line with my darker colors, and then fill in the gaps with my lighter colors, but feel free to use any color sequence that you like. And now that we have all that figured out, we can now get to seaming. Now, right before we get started with seaming, I do have a really quick tip for you guys. The way that we're going to seam it is going to be a single crochet seam along the inside. But once we flip it over, we can see the seam a little bit from the front. So be sure to use one of the colors as one of our granny squares. It doesn't matter which one, you just have to pick one, unless if you want to have a separate color to separate all of your granny squares, which could be kind of cute too. But I'm going to be using the same color as one of my granny squares, so let's seam these two together. We're going to start by flipping them on top of each other, making sure that the outside is face each other. I'm going to insert my hook into one of the granny squares, treble crochet stitch, and then into the treble crochet stitch into the other granny square as well. I'm going to insert my yarn onto my hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And once we have that, we can now single crochet. So inserting your hook into that first chain of the front granny square, and then into the same first chain of the back granny square. We should have a total of 3 loops on our hook. We're going to single crochet. Let's do the next one. Into the next stitch, into the first granny square, and then into the next stitch, into the back granny square. We're going to single crochet, and now we're at the puff stitch, which is going to be the same thing, but let's just do that together anyways. So start by inserting your hook into that top stitch, into the front panel, and then into the back panel, into that same top stitch, which is our puff stitch, and then single crochet. Now from here, we're going to continue to put 1 single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way across until we reach our treble crochet. Once we have that, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then we're going to repeat that for each of our squares that we have. And I'll meet you guys back once we have the frame of our piece all finished up. I am back, and I have just finished up seaming all of my granny squares. From here, we're going to clean up the inside and also weave in our edges as we go, just to make things a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier for us. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that our work is flipped right side up and right side up, meaning all of our seams are along the bottom. And once our work is looking like this, we're going to insert our hook into the bottom left corner. Alright, so now that my hook is into this bottom corner, I'm going to grab the same color yarn and we're going to start single crocheting across. So I'm going to insert my yarn onto my hook and pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. And from here, I'm going to put 1 single crochet into every stitch. When I reach this last stitch, I will meet you guys back because we are going to need to switch out our colors so that we can work into the other granny square, but let's just do the first few together. Since I inserted my hook into this treble crochet stitch, I should have 2 chains before I reach my puff. So into that first chain stitch, I'm going to insert my hook, and I'm also going to show you guys how we're going to weave in our ends as we go. So since we have this tail end, the one that we're currently working with, all I'm going to do is place it over my hook, right where that second loop is. And from here, I'm going to single crochet per usual, so yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And then as you guys can see, this tail end is in the middle of this single crochet, so it's already woven in. Let's do the next one. I should have one more chain space, so I'm going to insert my hook into there, continue to place my tail end over that loop, and then single crochet. Now into my next stitch, which should be my puff stitch, I now have 2 tail ends. You may not. If you do, then that's cool too. All we're going to do is continue to place both of our tail ends onto our hook and then single crochet. Now we can have as many tail ends in between our single crochets as we need, but continue to do this until we are about to get started on our last single crochet. Alright, so I have just single crocheted my way all the way down, and I have one more single crochet left to do, so I'm going to get that started, and then we're going to switch out our color. So into that last stitch that we have, I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, and pull through. And now that we have 2 loops on our hook, we're going to grab the next color yarn, place that onto our hook, and all we're going to do is pull that second color yarn through those 2 loops on our hook. So just pull that through, and now we have a seamless color change. And from here, I'm going to cut my first color and tie in my tail ends. And then once we have that, we can get started with putting 1 single crochet into every stitch while weaving in our ends. So let's just do the first one together. Start by inserting your hook into that first stitch, and if you guys are weaving in your tail ends, grab all of them, place that on top of the loop we just inserted our hook into, and then single crochet. I'm going to keep doing this, making my way all the way down. If you guys have more than just 2 granny squares, continue to switch out your colors as needed, but I will meet you guys back right when we're about to work into our slant. Right, so we have just made our way all the way up to our corner stitch, and now we can start working into our slant. So what I'm going to do, since I don't need to switch out my colors, I'm going to put 1 single crochet into this corner stitch right here, right in between this full granny square and my first half. And there is my single crochet. And what I'm going to do from here is insert my stitch marker into that corner stitch. And now I'm going to start working into the base of my first half granny. And into every side puff stitch that we have, we're going to be putting 2 single crochets. So jumping over here, this is my side puff. I'm going to insert with 1, and then I have another single crochet to do, but since I'm at my base, I'm going to switch out to my primary color. So I'm going to start my single crochet, yarn over, pull through, and when we have 2 loops on our hook, switch out. So go ahead and insert your next color, which is my primary color yarn, onto my hook, and pull through everything. Then we can tie in the 2 tail ends. Since I'm going to need to use this color again over here and along the side, I'm not going to be cutting. So I'm just going to weave it into my single crochet right into this section, just like how we would when weaving in our ends. So I'm going to tie this tail end with my previous color's working yarn. So now that I'm at the base of my half granny square, I'm going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side double while putting 1 single crochet into the middle of the base. So let's get that started. Start by inserting your hook into that side double crochet. I'm going to grab all of my tail ends, placing it over the stitch that I just inserted my hook into, and then I'm going to single crochet. There's my first single crochet. I'm going to be doing 1 more into that same side double. There is 2. Now working into the base, right into that middle circle, I'm going to insert with just 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochet into my next side double crochet, but switching out my colors into my last single crochet. So there is 1, and then I'm going to start off my last single crochet, yarn over, pull through, and now I'm going to pick up the second color that I need, yarn over, and pull through. Now I don't need to use my primary color again anytime soon, so I am going to do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then tie that into the working yarn. Alright, so now that everything is nice and secure, I'm going to continue to put 2 single crochet into every side puff stitch. Continue to do this for as many of our side granny squares that we have, and then I'll meet you guys back right at this corner. So now that we have made our way all the way up to this corner, we're going to single crochet into that corner stitch that we have. And then I'm going to insert my stitch marker into that stitch. And then from here, I'm going to put 1 single crochet into each of these stitches since I don't need to switch out my colors. Into that last stitch, I will switch out my color to my next color that I have, and then continue to do everything that we did here, going down to this other end. Do a chain up of 1 and cut right at this corner, and then I'll meet you guys back. We've just finished single crocheting along the inside of our piece, remembering that we did switch out every chance that we got, and now we're going to single crochet again with our primary color, making our way all the way around, and then we can get started with filling it out. So making sure that our work is still flipped right side out and right side up, we're going to insert our hook into left corner stitch again. Go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And all we're going to do is just single crochet all the way around, making sure that we are inserting our stitch markers into those same stitches, and I'll meet you guys back at this corner over here. We've just finished up single crocheting along the inside of our piece with our primary color, and now we can start to fill this in. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut, and now making sure that our work is still flipped right side up and right side out, we're going to insert our hook into the bottom left corner stitch again. Insert your color onto your hook, pull through. We're going to start with a chain 2. This counts as a half double crochet, and we're going to be putting 1 half double crochet into every stitch until we reach our stitch marker. So let's just do the first few. We're going to yarn over and insert your hook into that first stitch, and just as an FYI, we can be weaving in our tail ends at the same time, but I'm going to yarn over, pull through, should have 3 loops on our hook, so yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. Let's do the next one. Yarn over, insert your hook into that next stitch, pull through 3. Let's do this one more time. Yarn over into the next stitch, pull through, and pull through 3. I will meet you guys back once we put 1 half double crochet into every stitch once we reach our stitch marker. We've just made our way all the way up, putting 1 half double crochet into every stitch, and into this corner stitch with our stitch marker into, we're going to be doing an increase. So we can take this out for now, and then we're going to put 2 half double crochets into that stitch. So yarn over, we're going to insert with 1 half double crochet, and then once more into that same stitch. There is our second half double crochet, just like that. Once we have that, we're going to now connect it into the base, which is going to be our slant rows. So connecting our half double crochet into the base, we're going to count up 1, 2 stitches. Slip stitch into that second stitch to close off this row. Our next row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row. So slip stitch up just 1 stitch and flip our work. Now we're going to need to start with an increase of 2 back loop slip stitches, but this may be a little tricky, so let's get this started together. Working into the back loops, we're going to start by inserting our hook into that first available stitch's back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us. And a slip stitch is a yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. So pull through 1 and pull through 2. We're going to need to put one more back loop slip stitch into that same stitch for an increase, and this may get a little slow. So we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, and pull through. And sometimes it doesn't easily pull through, so you may need to pull this second loop over the working loop, but I think mine's going to pull through quite nicely. There's 1, and there's 2. Continue to put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of this row. Our back loop slip stitch row is all finished. We're now going to switch out to our half double crochet row again, but now it's all going to be worked into the back loops, and that's going to be our row sequence. So at the end of this row, we're going to do a chain 2 to work our way up to our half double crochet row. Now this one doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. From here, we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that first back loop, pull through 3. Continue to put one back loop half double crochet into every stitch until we have just one stitch left. We've made our way all the way up with our back loop half double crochets, and into that last one we're going to do our increase of 2. Just as a really quick tip, that last one may look a little hidden, but just make sure that you keep in counts of each row. But into that last stitch, we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that last back loop with one half double crochet, then once more into that same back loop. And then once we have that, we're going to count up 1, 2 stitches into the base, slip stitch into there to close off this row, and we're just going to get started on our back loop slip stitch row again, and it's going to be a repeat until we reach our stitch marker. So into the next stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch and flip our work. Start with an increase of 2 back loop slip stitches, so into that first stitch, insert, pull through everything, and into that same stitch, insert, and pull through everything. Repeat our back loop slip stitch and back loop half double crochet row until we reach our stitch marker, then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, I have done my back loop half double and back loop slip stitch rows all the way up until I reach my stitch marker. And from here we're going to continue those rows but with no increases or decreases until we reach this point. So just to get this started off, since I'm along the bottom, I'm going to do a chain 2 and flip. If you guys ended along the top, just slip stitch into the next stitch and then work your way down with back loop slip stitches. We'll go ahead and keep repeating those rows until we reach our next stitch marker, then I'll meet you guys back. I have just made my way all the way across until I reach my next stitch marker with my back loop half double and back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and decreases. From here, we're going to start doing our decreases going down this way so that we can match this incline that we have over here. So since I'm along the bottom, I'm going to do a chain 2, flip my work, and put one back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2. But if you guys are along the top, then your next row would be a slip stitch row. So I will meet you guys back in the next slip just so we can see how to decrease both of those stitches. Alright, so I have left my last 2 stitches. Now let's do our decrease of 2 back loop half double crochets. Start with the yarn over. Then insert our hook into that second to last back loop, yarn over, pull through, also into that last back loop, yarn over, pull through. We should all now have 4 loops on our hook, so yarn over, pull through all 4. That's how we do our decrease of 2 back loop half double crochets. Now we're going to slip stitch it into the base. So just like before, we're going to count up 1, 2 stitches, slip stitch into that second stitch to close off our half double crochet row, and then let's work our way up to our slip stitch row. So slip stitch up just 1 stitch, and flip our work. Now let's start with our decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches. Into that first back loop, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. Into that next back loop, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops that's on our hook. So pull through 1, 2, and 3. And then from here, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. From here, we're going to repeat our 2 rows. So 1 back loop half double crochet row, and then 1 back loop slip stitch row, both with decreases next to the base. Working our way down until we reach this stitch marker, and I'll meet you guys back. So I've just finished up going in with my decrease section. I have reached this stitch marker. From here, we're going to flip our work inside out so that we can seam this end together. So we're going to start by flipping it. And I'm going to take out my stitch marker because we don't need that anymore. From here, all I'm going to do is chain 1, and then we're going to do a single crochet seam. So let's get that started. Inserting your hook into that first stitch into the front panel, and then into the first stitch into the back panel, which is my granny square border, and then single crochet. Into my next stitch, insert my hook, into the next stitch into the back panel, insert my hook, with a single crochet. Let's do 1 more. Next stitch into the front panel, next stitch into the back panel, and single crochet. Now keep doing this, making our way all the way down until we don't have any more stitches left, and then do a chain up 1 and cut. And fill in for the front panel is all finished, and the last thing we're going to have to do for the front panel is clean up the outside edges. So let's get that started. Start by inserting your hook into the bottom corner stitch. Grab the same color of that granny square and insert that onto your hook. Now from here, we're going to chain 1 to secure, and then put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Remembering once we reach the last one, we're going to start our single crochet and then finish it off with our next color. So just as a reminder, I'll meet you guys all the way back when we have just 1 single crochet left. Alright, I've made my way all the way down. I have just 1 single crochet left to do, so let's do that together. Insert your hook into the last stitch into this granny square, yarn over, and pull through. Now go ahead and grab your second color if you guys need to switch out. Insert that yarn onto your hook and pull through 2. And then from here, we're going to single crochet with our second color. I'm not going to do a chain up 1 and cut with this first color because I'm going to need it again right after this granny square that we're about to work into. So all I'm going to do is tie this tail end in with my first color's working yarn and then just hide it as I go. I'll meet you guys back once I reach this corner. Alright, so I just made my way all the way down with putting 1 single crochet into every stitch that we have. Right before I start to switch out my colors, I'm going to put 1 single crochet into the side stitch that I have right in between this stitch and then my slant. Now obviously if you guys have more of these full square granny squares, continue until we reach this point. But what we're going to do is insert your hook into that side stitch right in between, and we're going to switch out our color as well. So start with the yarn over, pull through. Should have 2 loops on our hook, or I'm going to drop my working yarn and then pick up the next color that I have. I'm going to yarn over and pull through. Now this is my corner stitch that we just made. I'm going to insert a stitch marker into there. And from here, I'm going to continue to hide this working yarn because I'm going to need it up here as well. So I'm going to put 2 single crochets into every side puff stitch, and then we're going to need to introduce another color right over here. So I'm going to insert with 1. I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull through. And now that I have 2 stitches left, I'm going to place my next color onto my hook and pull through. And from here, I'm going to tie my tail end in with any one of my current working yarns just to secure it. And then from here, 2 single crochets into every side double since I'm working into the base now. So there's 1, there's 2, 1 single crochet into the middle of the base, 2 single crochets into the next side double. So there's 1, And then before we finish off the second, we're going to switch out our colors. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. I'm going to drop my base color and pick up the same color that we're about to work into for our granny square. Yarn over, pull through, 2 single crochets into the next side puff stitch. So there is 1, and then there's 2. Now we should be right at this point where we have this half point right here. We're going to find that top loop, insert your hook into there, and then I have just one more half granny square. So I'm going to repeat the same thing that we just did, but if you guys have more, go ahead and keep repeating it until we get to this point over here. I just made my way all the way up. I don't have any more of my half granny squares to work into, so all I'm going to do is insert my hook with a single crochet in between this half and my first full granny square to work across the top. So I'm going to insert my hook into that side row, yarn over and pull through. Since I need to change my color, I'm going to pick up my next color, place it on my hook, pull through, and insert my stitch marker into that stitch that we just made. And then from here, I'm just going to work my way all the way across with single crochets. Once we reach this corner, insert your stitch marker, all while switching out our colors. Do the same thing over here. And I'll meet you guys back once we have single crocheted along the entirety of our piece. We've just finished single crocheting along the entirety of the outer edge with each of our colors. I'm going to do one more single crochet, but only with the primary color, just to clean it up, and it's going to be a little bit easier, so let's get this started. Insert your hook into the bottom corner stitch, and from here we're just going to be putting 1 single crochet into every stitch that we have, just making sure that we're inserting our stitch markers into the same spots. When we've made our way all the way around, do a chain of 1 and a cut, and I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so we have just finished up single crocheting along the outer edge with our primary color. We are now all finished up with our front panel, and now we can get started on the back. So with my same primary color, I'm going to start off by making a chain, the same amount of stitches that we have, along this outer edge where our granny squares are. Now a really quick tip, each granny square should have a total of 13 stitches per side. Since I have 2 granny squares, I'm going to make a chain of 26, but if you guys have more, just keep adding 13 until you guys have the right number. Now that I have my chain, I'm going to block off my last chain and do a chain 2. That's just our turning chain, that doesn't count as a stitch. And from here we're going to yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, go ahead and insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through 3. That's our first half double crochet. Let's do just one more. So yarn over, into that next chain, pull through 3. Continue to put 1 half double crochet into every chain, and I'll meet you back when we have just one more so that we can increase together. Alright, we have 1 chain left, so let's do our increase. So yarn over into that last chain, we're going to put 2 half double crochets. And from here, we're going to need to increase into our slip stitch row as well. So from here, we're going to chain 2. That first chain is going to count as a stitch. That second chain counts as our turning chain, and we're going to flip our work. Now into the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert into that back loop with a slip stitch. So we're going to skip 1, insert your hook into that next chain, yarn over, pull through everything. That counts as our first stitch. Now working into the first stitch from our previous row, insert into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything. Continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And now that we've put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, the next row in our sequence is a back loop half double crochet. So chain 2 and flip our work. Let's do the first back loop half double crochet together. We're going to yarn over, insert your hook in that first stitch's back loop, pull through, yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. Continue to put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, remembering to do an increase into that last back loop, and then do our back loop slip stitch row with the increase, which is a chain 2. I'll meet you guys back at the end of this row just to do that with you guys one more time. Alright, so finishing off our row number 3 together, we're going to do an increase of 2 back loop half double crochets. So yarn over into that last back loop, insert with 1, and then with 2 half double crochets. Our slip stitch row is going to have an increase, so like the last one, we're going to chain 2, flip our work. Insert your hook into the second chain from your hook's back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything. Continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Now from here, we're going to continue to repeat those 2 rows for the same amount of increased rows right here, plus 10 more rows. The extra 10 rows comes from the amount of stitches we have right here where the granny squares are. So just as an example, I have 6 rows right here, plus the 10 that we all have to do. I'm going to do a total of 16 rows, and then I will meet you guys back. Alright, so I'm back with my underarm portion. I have a total of 16 rows like I stated in the previous clip, and from here we're going to work on our back portion, which is just rows of back loop half double crochets and back loop slip stitches working across our back. Now, since my next row is going to be a back loop half double crochet, let's get that started. We're going to chain 2 and flip our work. Put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way down. And then I'll meet you guys back at the end of this row just to show you guys how we're going to start our back loop slip stitch rows, and then how many rows to do. Alright, so I've made my way all the way up. The next row is a back loop slip stitch row. So all we're going to do is chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, no increases and no decreases. From here, we're going to repeat those 2 rows for the same amount of blunt rows that we have for the front panel. But we do want to make sure that we end on the same row that we started this blunt portion off with. So if you guys started with a back loop slip stitch row, end on a back loop slip stitch row. But since I ended on a back loop half double crochet row, I'm going to end on a half double crochet row. So if you guys need to add or take away a row, that's fine. I'll meet you guys back once we have this portion all finished up. Right, so I'm back and I have made my way all the way across with my back portion. I ended on a half double crochet because I started this blunt portion on a half double crochet. So my next row, which is now going to be our decrease rows, will be a slip stitch row. So I'm going to get that started off with you guys. If you guys are starting with your half double crochet, just put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2, and then I'll meet you guys in the next clip. But what I'm going to do from here is chain 1, flip my work, and inserting my hook into that first back loop, and insert, pull through, next back loop, insert, yarn over, and pull through all 3 of those loops. Continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch and into every stitch. At the end of this row, chain 2, flip our work, and put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2. Alright, so we've left our last 2 stitches, so now let's do a decrease of 2. Start with the yarn over, insert your hook into that second to last back loop, pull through, also into that last back loop, pull through. Should have 4 loops on our hook, so yarn over, and pull through all 4. Now let's just get the next row started off. Since we're at the top, we might as well do a chain 1, flip your work, insert your hook into that first back loop, pull through, next back loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. We're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and then do a back loop half double crochet row with a decrease along the top. We're going to keep repeating those 2 rows until we have the same amount of underarm rows as this other side, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so we have just finished up going in with our underarm portion, and we're all done with the back panel. The last thing we're going to have to do for this section is just single crochet along the top to clean it up. So how we're going to do that is start by doing a chain 1 if we ended at the top. If you guys ended at the bottom, do a chain 1 cut, and then reinsert your hook into this top corner. And we're going to start by doing 2 single crochets into the first side half double crochet. So into this stitch, I'm going to insert with 1 single crochet, Then into the same side row, my second single crochet. And we're going to be putting one single crochet into every side slip stitch row as well. So into the top of this side row, I'm going to find that top loop and single crochet once. Let's do one more set. Into the next side half double crochet, go ahead and insert with one and then two. Into my next side slip stitch row, find that top loop and then put one single crochet. I'm going to keep putting two single crochets into every side half double crochet and one single crochet into every side slip stitch row all the way up until we don't have any more of these slant rows, and then I'll meet you guys back so that we can do a chain one for our corner. Alright, I have now reached my corner. What I'm going to do from here before we start working across the blunt end is just do a chain one. I'm going to insert my stitch marker into that chain one and then continue with putting two single crochets into every side half double and one single crochet into every side slip stitch row. When you reach this corner, do the same thing. So chain one, insert your stitch marker, and then close this row off. Do a chain up of one and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so now that our back panel is all finished up, we can now seam our front and back panel together. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that our piece is faced right side out. So I'm going to place the ribbing downwards for the back panel and making sure that we're looking at the front of our granny squares so it's faced up towards us. Insert my hook into the bottom corner stitch of the front panel and into the bottom corner stitch of the back panel, and then insert our yarn, pull through everything, and then do a chain up of one to secure. Now this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, so it looks like another slip stitch row. So let's get this started. Into that first stitch into the front panel, I'm going to insert my hook only in through that front loop. So into that loop that's closest to us, I'm going to insert my hook. And then into the back panel, into that next available stitch, I'm going to insert my hook into the back panel. So into that back loop, we should have 3 loops on our hook, and now we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. Let's do this again. Into the next stitch, into the front panel, insert your hook only in through that front loop, and then into the next stitch, into the back panel, only in through that back loop. 3 loops on our hook. So yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. Now I'm going to continue to do this until I reach my stitch marker right at this corner. Do a chain up of one and cut, and then do the same thing that we just did here on the other side. Alright, so our sides are now all seamed up, and now we're going to get started on our underarm detail. So what we're first going to do is insert our hook into our stitch marker stitch. Could be the front or the back panel, it doesn't matter. Insert your yarn onto your hook and pull through. Now from here, I'm going to start off by making a chain the height that I want my underarm detail to be. And I want mine to be about 1 inch or 3 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 5. And once we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain. Do a chain 1, and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through everything. Let's do this again. Insert your hook into that next chain, yarn over, pull through everything. Continue to put 1 slip stitch into every chain. And now that we've put 1 slip stitch into every chain, we now need to connect it into the base, working down towards the point of our underarm. So inserting your hook into that next available stitch, insert, yarn over, and pull through everything to close off our first row. To work our way up to the next row, we're going to slip stitch up the next stitch and flip our work. And from here, I'm going to put 1 slip stitch into the first back loop. So into that first available stitch, insert your hook into that first back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. Let's do this again, into that next stitch, into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything. Continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of this row, do a chain 1, flip your work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, connecting it into the base the same way that we just did. We're going to continue with those 2 rows, making our way all the way up to this stitch marker up here, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then do the same thing that we just did here on the other side, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, we are back and we have just finished up going in with our underarm portion on both sides. Now from here we can get started on the collar. So what we're going to do is insert our hook into the top corner stitch into any of our panels. And then from here we're going to make a chain that can reach up and over our shoulder and reach the other side's corner stitch. I've already measured mine out. Mine's going to be a total of 24 chains. That's just about 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. So pull through and start by making your chain. Now that we have our chain, we're going to single crochet it into the other side's corner stitch. So all I'm going to do is flip my work around, single crochet into this corner stitch, and then put one single crochet into every stitch, making my way across. Once when I reach this corner, make the same chain that we just did, single crochet into this stitch, and single crochet across again. Slip stitch into that chain one space, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, we have just made our way all the way around with our chains and single crochet. And now we're going to do a slip stitch collar the same way that we did the underarm portion. So I'm going to start off by making a chain the height that I want my collar to be. I want mine to be just about the same as my underarm. So that's about 1 inch or 3 centimeters. So I'm going to start off by making a chain of 5. Once when I have my chain, I'm going to flip my work, block off that last chain, and do a chain of 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, I'm going to insert our hook with a slip stitch. So insert, yarn over, pull through everything. Into that next chain, insert, pull through everything. Continue to put one slip stitch into every chain. Once we have our row number 1, we need to slip stitch it into the base. So into that first stitch, into the base, we're going to yarn over, pull through everything. And then just to work our way up to the next row, even though we already know how to do this, we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, flip our work, and put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. We're going to keep repeating those 2 rows, making our way all the way around, including going into the chains the same way that we just did. I'll meet you guys back when we don't have any more stitches left so that we can seam our collar together. Alright, so I have made my way all the way around with my back loop slip stitch rows, and now we're going to seam it together. So we're first going to start by sandwiching our 2 pieces together, making sure that our work is flipped right side out. We're going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam now, so let's get that started. Into the first stitch, into the front panel, we're going to insert our hook into the front loop only. So this is my first stitch. Let's insert into that front loop, and then in through the back panel, find that back loop, and then insert into that back loop. From here, we're going to yarn over and pull through everything. This is the same way that we seam the sides, so let's just do one more. Into that next stitch, insert your hook into that front loop, and then into the next stitch, insert your hook into that back loop. Yarn over, pull through everything. And we're going to keep doing this, making our way all the way down, and then do a chain of 1 and cut. Now that our collar is all seamed, we're now ready to get started on our bottom band. So what we're going to do is insert our hook into any one of our bottom rows. I'm going to insert my yarn onto my hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And then from here, we're going to make our way all the way around, putting 2 single crochets into every side half double, and then 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row. So let's do the first few. My next side row that I have right here is a side half double crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook into there with 1, then also with 2 single crochets. Now my next row is this side slip stitch row, so we're going to find that top loop, insert your hook, and then single crochet. Let's do one more set. This is my next row. It's a side half double. So insert with 1 into that same side loop with 2, and then into my side slip stitch row, insert your hook into that top loop with just 1. Now we're going to keep doing this, making our way all the way around. Along the front, we do have the bottoms of our granny squares to work into, but just make your way across, putting 1 single crochet into every stitch. Slip stitch into that chain 1 space once we make our way around, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so we've just made our way all the way around with our single crochet row, and now we're going to make a chain the length that we want our bottom band to be. Now I want mine to be a total of about 2 inches or 8 centimeters, so I'm going to make a total chain of 10. And now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain of 1, And then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert, yarn over, and pull through everything. From here, we're going to continue to put one slip stitch into every chain, connecting it into the base. And this is going to be an exact repeat of our collar. So just do rows of back loop slip stitches, connecting it into the base the same way that we've been doing. I'll meet you guys back when we don't have any more stitches left so that we can seam it all up together. I've made my way all the way around with my back loop slip stitch rows. I don't have any more stitches left, and now we're going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam to finish this up. So making sure that our work is flipped right side out, I'm going to press my two panels together, and then into the front panel, I'm going to insert my hook only into that front loop, and then into the back panel, I'm going to insert my hook only into that back loop. We should have 3 loops on our hook, so from here we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So this is the same way that we've done all of our other seams, so let's just do one more. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop, and then into the next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. 3 loops on our hook, so from here yarn over and pull through all 3. Continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left, and then do a chain of 1 and cut. And now that our bottom band is all seamed, we are all done. The last thing we're going to have to do is weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, guys. We are all done. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial, and don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. All of those links are down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!